Let's get into Mexico election. It's historic. What are the liberals saying? What are the leftists saying? Why is it important? Let's start off our journey today, not on Israel, Palestine, but instead in Mexico.
Que por primera vez en 200 años.
For the first time in 200 years, women have reached the presidency, she told her jubilant supporters in the capital's main plaza.
It's historic, completely. It's for the women who are no longer with us and those who are still fighting, not just in the political arena, but in any way where we have conviction as women. To see someone who comes...
Yeah, this was crazy, by the way. Mexican candidate assassinations hit grim record ahead of Sunday's election. 37, bro. Mexico's election is now the bloodiest in its modern history after a candidate running for local office in the central Puebla state was murdered on Friday at a political rally, taking the number of assassinated candidates to 37 ahead of Sunday's vote. Twitter leftists think they have more credibility than Evo. Guys. This is like, Giannis Varoufakis posted celebrating her. I'm not like super clued in on our policies at all, but there's a lot of people that I do trust, that I am aligned with politically, that are seemingly very excited about the prospect. So I'll reserve my judgment for what she ends up doing. The real problem is that Morena is getting control of Senate and Congress. They can make changes in the Constitution now. They have whole control of the country. Well, here's the issue there, which that did happen as far as I understand in Mexican politics regardless, but that could be a good thing or it could be a very bad thing. It's entirely related to the ideological commitment that the party has to legitimately improving the material conditions of all people in Mexico. If they have that genuine vested interest, if they don't have that, and by the way, this is being done technically through the democratic process. I know that there are other aspects of it. For example, the AMLO stuff as it pertains to the Supreme Court, right? I think there was some issue with the courts. Having said that, however, I'm not immediately going to be like, oh no, they are too popular. Here's what Giannis said. You should trust no politician, but at the same time, consider everything AMLO did for the poor in Mexico. Claudia is committed to continuing AMLO's policies in favor of those lacking power and wealth, but that does not mean we should not be ready for fair criticism. Yeah, like I am going to reserve my judgment for her policies. I mean, when she does inevitably follow through on them, rather than immediately be like, oh, this is bullshit. The reality is having this popular governing mandate, historically speaking, has actually led to prosperity in the past as well. It has also been incredibly damaging for Latin American countries in the other direction. And what I mean by that is when it's not actually the democratic process that brings someone in the position of power, but a coup d'etat backed by the U.S. state that then go in and create this massive dictatorship. Oftentimes, however, when a populist, democratically organized movement that ends up working on solving some of the underlying material inequalities, when they actually have this incredible popular mandate to operate and they demonstrate a commitment to that goal overall, that goal that got them that popularity to begin with, yields pretty positive outcomes. And it's not just in Latin America either. This has also happened in the United States of America. Who am I referencing here? Obviously, no one in contemporary American history. I'm talking about FDR. Ultimately, we have this capacity to go, oh my God, this is terrifying. I don't really, what's going on? We have like a complete control of Congress and the presidency and there's no checks and balances. And it's like, we're kind of, in my opinion, behaving like American liberals who say stuff like they want to do split ticket voting because they want like a Republican Congress with a Democratic president. I'm not necessarily inclined to immediately say, no, it's good to have opposition. I don't know if like having all of these different representations in Mexican politics has yielded positive results for Mexicans in general. I'm just looking at results. I don't personally care about what these guys are, aesthetically presenting or what happens in this situation. Does that make sense? Yeah, this is a real argument. I used to love the metro system in Mexico City until roofs started falling off, trains derailing and crashing more often. This is something I have heard. Overpasses falling on top of pedestrians. Now, that isn't entirely her fault, obviously. Mexico's crumbling infrastructure is not going to be directly the fault of the last Mexico City mayor, but I have heard from people that she wasn't a very good mayor and more so a careerist. Why are you assuming you know what's going to happen in Mexico, though? Wait, what? Are you talking to me? I'm not assuming that. Like, the real thing is, I don't think she's going to do feminism, for example. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are like, well, that's a woman in charge now. Like, Mexico's about to be feminist. And I don't personally think that that is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she's going to advance feminist causes. Maybe she will. I don't know. But it's the social issues that I don't think are going to change in Mexico. But I'll take what I can get in terms of like any kind of advancement for the poorest Mexicans. Only for selfish reasons, of course, because I want every Mexican to be able to subscribe at the top of the hour. So the point is all a matter of, what will they do with the popular mandate they have? How did they arrive at this popular mandate? Well, it seems like they arrived at it through good policy, or at least comparatively good policy. I wouldn't say it's the best policy, but overall, making the most of they could with the obvious limitations that they have. We often forget how long and how arduous a process it is to change, especially a country like Mexico. Kind of unrelated, but I remember last elections, Partido Verde literally sponsored a ton of Mexican influencers, and they all posted the same story supporting the party. You're not going to be able to unironically, one, remove corruption as an element from Mexican politics, and two, you're certainly not going to be able to do that in one term, and three, you are not going to be able to dismantle the influence of the cartel. But yeah, see, this is what I mean. The metro system didn't have maintenance work for 53 years, and somehow it's the current government's fault that the infrastructure is crumbling. They handled poorly though. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's like a competent governor, a competent leader, a competent mayor would try to work against that, but it's not entirely in her hands. That's my point. And the same went for AMLO as well. We'll see what happens.
For now, her supporters are celebrating having made history. And once the party ends, most voters want the president-elect to prioritize drug cartel crime over all other issues in her in-tray. Claudia Sheinbaum inherits a nation mired in violence. Her challenge now will be to succeed where so many men before her have failed.
Brother, those are the kind of people say we are becoming Cuba because you voted for Morena. Yeah. One can only wish that Mexico becomes Cuba. That doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. That sounds like an objectively good turn for Mexican politics. Holy dude, Cuba is doing, all things considered, despite the crippling blockades and endless sanctions that are completely unjustifiable, completely inhumane against the Cuban state by the global dominant hegemonic superpower, United States of America, for the crime of having a revolution against the American-backed dictator. I would say that Cuba is probably doing pretty good. If Cuba was allowed to thrive on top of everything else, like if they weren't so hyper reliant earlier on the USSR and then beyond USSR now, China, if they could like participate in the global marketplace as one does, they would do even better.
Not only security matters, but the military now control the customs and have built a refinery and have built an airport and own an airline. So that's a key issue to define moving forward. And also very key policies such as public finances. We're running the largest public deficit this year over the last 35 years. What the new energy matrix and the new energy policy will be, and also a series of elements in relation to competitiveness of the Mexican economy vis-a-vis.
The violence in Mexico is the same propaganda that Trump and the right always say about the place. Different problems like guns in the USA. Wait, what? The violence in Mexico is definitely very real. Cartel violence specifically is very, very real. It's not like, that's not like a fake problem. That's a very real issue. Just like femicide is a very real issue as well. Legitimate problems. The way I look at it is like, it's almost like grading it on a curve, because like, what the you supposed to do? Like, there's a 6-year term limit regardless, but beyond that, it's like this has been Mexican politics for a very long time. I don't know how any administration can tackle it over the course of like 6 years. Maybe over like 2 decades, 3 decades, you can like try to chip away at it. Why doesn't Mexico crack down on cartel violence and jail every gang member like Nayib Bukele, the greatest leader of modern human history, did? Yeah, great question. That would be impossible because they have American guns and American weapons and American gear and American dollars lining up their pockets. And therefore, they are in many instances more powerful than the military. So you can't really do that. And also, that's not a good solution anyway. Mexico's cartel problem is not one that Mexico itself can solve. Mexico's cartel problem can only be solved with American politics. That is the unfortunate reality of the matter. They get their guns from us and they get their money from us. We are the market and we give them guns. So there is no way to solve it internally with internal Mexican politics in general. Now the progressives are in power. They demand an end to the system of violence that the right continued to aid and increase through corruption and austerity for generations. Yeah, look, you have to personally grade on a curve. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to analyze the situation, you look at the material conditions, recognize how bad things are, and then see if the people that you're electing are moving the needle in positive directions. As far as AMLO's administration goes, there is a lot of things that he ran against, like corruption, ending corruption, which is, kind of laughable, and also tackling narco violence, which again did not happen. There are understandable criticisms of like increased military brutalization, but beyond that, like I said, renationalization of oil, nationalization of lithium, these are all, positive. It's funny how leftist leaders and figures in newspapers are saying this is good, but chatters are saying it's bad because their racist families said she sucks. No, I don't think so. I think that there is a understandable growing problem with respect to narco violence. Look, you cannot deny one thing, and that is that AMLO's party is profoundly popular. I mean, you look at the elections and it's like, what are we talking about here? The popularity is unimaginable in comparison to like American metrics. If you look at the 2024 Mexico presidential election live results, she didn't just win 60%. She literally wipe the goddamn map. I mean, it's crazy. Why would they even elect her? She's not even Mexican. She's Lithuanian Jewish. I like that this is Goat K Kona Savage. I like that this is just pure anti-Semitism. Like literally, just nothing else. I know I wanted some hogs in here, but not like this, okay? Just absolutely feral. I mean, just vintage, yeah. Yeah, just like Obama's not a real American. You know what I'm saying, brother? The head of the Democratic Majority for Israel said that too. The co-chair of Democratic Majority for Israel tried to smear the incoming Mexican president by implying she isn't Jewish enough. He said she even thanked Jesus for her victory. Important to note that she is not involved in the Jewish community, and thank Jesus for her victory is literally the name of her husband. She's not invested in her Jewish roots. And also, guess what, dude? She married a guy named Jesus. I mean, I don't know. Mexican is a Catholic country to the core. Religious diversity is scarce. That's why so many people are against their Jewish background. She runs under the impression that she isn't religious. I don't think she is religious. She comes from a commie family, dude. That's all I need to know. On that front, I would even go so far as to say she's better than AMLO. Like, what are we talking about? Unironically, in my opinion, everything that I've read so far, she literally has a lot of aspects to her that were AMLO's biggest weaknesses from my understanding. More dynamic, a woman. That's like, automatic feminism there. Her background as a stem cell. Claudia Sheinbaum has won Mexico's presidential election in a landslide. In her victory speech, she paid homage to the social movements of the past and promised to continue Morena's impressive record of social progress. The Morena leadership holed up in the Hilton Hotel in Mexico City was in a state of quiet shock. They knew they were going to win Mexico's presidential election, but not by that much. As results trickled in yesterday evening, it became clear the long-expected victory was a drubbing. So far, Claudia Sheinbaum holds a 30-point lead over her conservative rival, Xochitl Galvez, 58.3% to 28.7%, with the third-party candidate, Jorge Alvarez Maynez, coming in at 10.5%. Mexico said no to men, okay? Enough men. We got women now. Women are in charge. According to the projections made by the National Electoral Institute, Sheinbaum's final total is expected to fall within 58.3 to 60.1%, outperforming all but a hair of the final pre-election polls. According to the Institute's Conteo Rapido, or fast count, the landslide was expected to carry over into Congress as well, with Morena and his allies winning up to 380 of the 500 seats in the lower house, the Chamber of Deputies, and up to 88 of the 128 seats in the Senate. This would put the center-left coalition within a range of its ambitious goal of achieving a qualified majority of 2/3, which would allow it to pass constitutional reforms on its own. Together with the state legislatures it controls, not only did Morena win the all-important mayorship of Mexico City with the candidate Clara Brugada, the Morena coalition is also set to pick up at least 6 of the 8 governors' races for grabs. Like, people that are upset at technically democracy in this situation. I understand why people would be fearful about the governing mandate that this party now has, considering Mexico's history. I think that's what a lot of people are worried about. A lot of people are cynical and very worried about it, but ultimately this is literally a consequence of the party's popularity due to the party's many different policies, as far as I understand, trying to tackle some of the underlying material issues in Mexico. To put Morena's victory in perspective, Sheinbaum is on course to best Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador's 2018 landslide victory of 53% by some 5 to 7 points. Where AMLO received a historic total of 30 million votes, Sheinbaum will have received some 35 million. Similarly, Galvez was running about 10 to 12 points behind the Conservative Party's total in that election in 2018. The Conservative Party's Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI, and National Action Party, PAN, ran separately this year. They ran in a coalition, but instead of adding in numbers, the coalition wound up subtracting. Many of you were naysayers of duendes and their power to offer you wish fulfillment, but it seems like who's laughing now? Okay, who's laughing now? A lot of you said it's not real. Wood elves are not real. They can't hurt you. You know what AMLO was doing? Whispering to the wood elves about his dreams of increasing the popularity of his party. Turns out that's a dub for him, a dub for the wood elves, and also a dub for him. What is this wood elf thing? If you don't know about it, don't ask about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. A refusal to be goaded. True to her scientific background, Sheinbaum ran on a disciplined, methodical campaign, taking nothing for granted. Despite holding a virtually unchanged lead since announcing her candidacy, Sheinbaum racked up the miles, holding 3 times as many rallies as Galvez, where Galvez veered from one uncosted policy proposal to another. Sheinbaum rolled out a 100-point program that includes extending social programs and scholarships, continuing annual minimum wage increases. That was massively popular. Consolidating Mexico's push towards national health care, building 1 million affordable homes on a rent-to-buy plan, constructing 7 long-distance train lines, avoiding the maquiladora experience of the 1990s by mandating that companies investing in the nearshoring phenomenon provide higher wages and benefits, and in what is certain to continue, raising the shackles of multinational energy interests, a public sector-led energy transition building on Mexico's state-owned oil, electricity, and lithium companies. Throughout the campaign and over the course of 3 debates, Sheinbaum refused to be goaded by opposition candidate Galvez's scattershot series of attacks that got nastier over time. Playing to the hilt, a go negative campaign strategy, attacked everything from her character to her family to her record as Mexico City's mayor, winding up a series of dog whistle insinuations about Sheinbaum's Jewish heritage. Sheinbaum also refused to be goaded by those who repeated that she is going to be a puppet of outgoing President AMLO. Every time someone would try to insist on the need to create a more individualistic image, as if she were marketing a new brand of cereal or detergent, Sheinbaum would calmly explain that she represents a social movement and that her administration will proudly be segundo piso, or second floor, of Mexico's fourth transformation. And she did it all with the poker face persona that served her in good stead as mayor of Mexico City, one that, eschewing the attempt to force a lofty oratorical style, asserted her authority with understated consistency both in interviews and on the stump. Sheinbaum's victory also came despite a coordinated international campaign of media and bots that attempted to paint AMLO and Morena as being in collusion with drug cartels. This is only a chapter of the nonstop media onslaught that sneered and slandered its way through AMLO's administration without deigning to learn about what was happening underneath its very limited radar. Maybe that's part of the reason why the chatters are coming in here and saying, like, no, AMLO met with Chapo's mom. They are in the pocket of cartels as well. I mean, there is a very real escalation of cartel violence, way, way, way more consequential and way more significant than the violence at the top of the hour ad break that chatters constantly chirp about. Like, that's the biggest type of violence that chatters see on a daily basis and complain about on a daily basis. For the election, a gaggle of foreign journalists touched down in Mexico City, marveling that such a machista country would be electing a woman president, and so comfortably. Once again, all the comfortable tropes, election of state voters, bought out by social programs, religious populace, and the thrall of a handpicked successor of a messianic leader, were trundled out. Anything to avoid granting agency to Mexican voters are seeing what has been happening on the ground, a policy-driven process of party realignment in which working-class voters scattered across parties in the 2018 election have concentrated in Morena while maintaining the party's cross-class coalition largely intact. After a victory acknowledgement in the Hilton, Sheinbaum made her way to Mexico City's main square, the Zocalo, where, I don't know if I'm saying that right. There, she paid homage to the social movement as a path from workers to students, teachers to farmers, and read out the names of women who have played pivotal roles in Mexico's history. As the latest member of that list, Sheinbaum will have an enormous electoral mandate, even larger than AMLO's. As of October 1st, the Presidente will now be the Presidenta. Viva Mexico.